All right. Welcome back to Boss Uncaged podcast. So today we have Ben, right? And off air, we had a whole conversation about his nickname. Like, usually when people come to the show, they don't even know what their nicknames are, but we kind of had like a little off bar conversation about it. So we're going to kind of just dive into the conversation with that. But his nickname is going to be the Enterprise Resource Boss. And obviously, it's for a particular reason, and we're going to talk about that service and that what that brand really means to an individual, especially coming from the accounting standpoint. So the floor is yours, Ben. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself, and what would you like to talk about today?
Yeah, definitely. No, appreciate you having me. And I think you hit it off on the right note, right? Looking to talk about enterprise resource planning, or ERP for short today, how the audience out there that's either starting businesses or growing existing businesses can benefit from good systems. Accounting can be boring sometimes, right? So we'll try to make it fun, but really looking to just add any value I can in terms of things I've learned over the past years of running my business, as well as helping other businesses implement and support various ERP systems. So really looking forward to the conversation today.
Cool. So those that listen to this show, they know I like to like unpack who I'm actually interviewing and get a little bit of background story. So I want to kind of start off this particular story because it seems like your high school career was it was filled with a lot of different things. I mean, everything from like, I think you were in honor society, you were in the Spanish honor society, you were in the Spanish club, you were varsity golf, varsity basketball. So I want to kind of talk about your early days for a little bit and kind of where did you grow up?
Yeah, definitely. So I live in Dallas, Texas now, but grew up in Chicago, Illinois suburbs. So specifically around Aurora, where a lot of those things you're pulling from. Went to a small private, all guys Catholic military high school, actually. So a lot to unpack there. But that was kind of the roots of my early days, and I think it kind of extrapolates to what I'm doing now in terms of just being, insanely busy at all times. Didn't feel like there was a free moment at all between some of the things that you had mentioned, but it prepared me well, I think, for running my own business now, right? Just constantly pivoting from one thing to another, whether it was classwork during the day into sports in the evening, and then more, homework and studying at night. I've kind of always been in that gear, I feel like, since I was a kid or growing up, and have continued to do so through both my professional career, from working other places, as well as kind of trying to run my own company for the last couple of years.
So, I mean, obviously with your background, it kind of seems like, you were staring in one direction. So I want to kind of talk about like, how did you go from, essentially kind of being like a jock, right, into more technology? Like when did the tech stuff come into play for you?
Yeah, so I was always really interested in just kind of how money works, right? So accounting, finance, those kind of things. And that's originally what I studied in college. So I went to Drake University, enrolled there, started in 2012. So just a little over 10 years ago now. And just really had a passion always for learning, about the markets and things like that. And didn't really see how the two played together probably until I want to say my sophomore or junior year, right? So at Drake was studying finance and had taken some IT classes, kind of just some basic like MIS classes, programming, advanced Excel and VBAs and things like that. And really found it interesting and kind of had a passion for how they intertwined, right? And as I dove deeper and deeper into that, I actually ended up adding a MIS major on top of my finance major. And I think, looking back on it, obviously, if I could have done it all over again, I would have started that even earlier, just because of how much potential it really gave for what I was going to do, right? And actually, through interviewing for various jobs, I was originally looking, for internships and full-time jobs throughout my sophomore and junior year, and kind of was focused on investment banking and mergers and acquisitions consulting and things like that, all really heavily finance backed. And one of the interviews I was at, one of the guys that I was talking to was like, no, you should do ERP. And I was like, I honestly don't even know what that stands for at the time. Right. And I was like, well, you've been doing this for 20, 30 years. So you tell me why you think my background would be a good fit for this. And we had like honestly, just an hour conversation, just kind of off the cuff, completely just derailed the interview. And after it, I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Kind of went back the next couple of days, looked more into it, had some different offers from some different, consulting firms. And then ultimately I ended up going with this ERP one, right? And kind of was just jumping into the unknown. There's so many different things that it encompasses, all the way from accounting and finance to operations, obviously to IT. And it was kind of just the right place at the right time, talking to the right people. You don't know what you don't know, especially at university. A lot of the professors and advisors and things like that, they don't know all the jobs that are out there unless they've done them. So really kind of just, networking, right? It all comes down to networking and who you know, and you don't know what you don't know until you meet the right people that can kind of help set you in the right direction. So I'm really thankful for all the mentors that I've had along the way, and continue to learn every day, both from a standpoint of what our business does, as well as, networking with a lot of other business owners to see what they're doing, how their markets are changing, and what they've found to do successful, whether it be in the finance realm or the marketing realm or the management realm, right? There's so many different pieces that have to come together in order to kind of grow a successful business and run it in the right direction. So that's kind of, just the hodgepodge of experiences I've had to kind of get where I'm at today. And I'd say it continues to change every day in terms of who I talk to and what I learn. So it's always a fun journey.
I think it's fascinating. I think everything that you just said could be summed up in the one word of fintech, right? Everything you're bringing all these different elements. So I want you to kind of talk about fintech for a minute, because fintech has been something that's been around, but it's just becoming more so mainstream as an actual naming convention. So I want you to talk about, when did you actually first hear about fintech, and how does that change your direction to where you're going with your business currently?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely a buzzword that it means something different to everybody, right? Like, I think when some people think fintech, they think maybe cryptocurrencies and Bitcoins, right? Other people think about ERPs and financial systems, and other people may think about just, banking integrations and things like that. I think is hot right now in terms of fintech. So I think really it does encompass all of them, right? It's how do you kind of streamline everything that's happening in the financial world. And I think what we're doing in terms of integrating kind of everything in order to get to a one-stop shop for your financial data, right? At the end of the day, all the inputs that we're putting into our system, we're trying to get profit and losses, income statements, cash flows, and balance sheets, right? Things that can show you the health of your business. Whereas fintech to other people may be integrating all of, your cryptocurrency on the blockchain and facilitating transactions back and forth. I think it really all comes down to visibility into your financial data, right? So blockchain does a really good job with this. ERP does a good job with this. Banking integrations do a really good job with this. And I've worked at a few different places before starting this company. The last company I worked for, again, would qualify themselves as fintech, and they were really doing mostly finance as a service, right? So another way to enhance finance as a service with fintech, and taking everything together to say, how do we optimize for the CFO, the controller, the CEO, whoever's looking at that financial data? How do we get people out of the debits and the credits, and how do we get them into looking at their data from a more strategic standpoint, right? So again, optimizing everything, as little time as possible to close your books at the end of the month, and really just trying to optimize and gain more efficiencies throughout your financial team. And again, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But if you can do things smarter and faster with less touch points and less people entering data, you're going to get a lot more holistic view of your business. And it's also going to be a lot more accurate, right? People have a 10 to fat finger, including myself. And I look to like OCR processes for migrating in data, whether that be like purchase orders or purchase invoices. Mainly, I want no touch points. I want it to come in the computer, scan itself in, tell me how much I owe, and then ideally go pay itself after 30 days, right? So I think that, like, when you're looking at workflows in fintech, especially, it's how can you reduce the touch points and automate things that really don't add any value to your business, right? Like, me paying my vendors doesn't add any value to my business. It's just a necessary evil to keep the doors open and keep my vendors to keep supplying me, right? On the opposite side, for customers, it's a little bit more important, obviously, because that's where your cash is coming from. So you want to make sure that there's the right touch points there. But again, automating that as much as possible, making sure that your invoices are getting out to your customers in a timely manner. They're getting reminders if they're late. They're getting statements at the end of the month to know what their positions are. And again, helping facilitate that communication and really communicating financially, both what you owe and who owes you, I think, are obviously the two most important things when looking at cash flow, especially.
Yeah, yeah. I think one key terminology that you use several times in that last statement was automation, which is
Oh yeah.
essentially like watching some of your YouTube videos and watching a lot of your content, like you're a big automation guy, right? So I want you to kind of talk about like are you leveraging automation within the systems that you're building and developing for your clients currently?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, a lot of our revenue comes from tools that we've built for automation, right? So you're 100% correct. My focus, anytime I see anything, is how can we automate this or reduce the touch points or really make it easier for the users, right? Because if you have users that are literally typing in data and spending a lot of time just like checking boxes and things like that, that's such a waste of their time, right? They could be using their time to actually analyze the data and make decisions and grow the business rather than just maintain the business. So when I look at automation, I look at anytime an email comes into my inbox and somebody asks me a question, even, it's like, could I make this a video, right? It doesn't even have to be anything crazy. Like if I'm answering a question that takes me 3 minutes to 4 minutes to answer via email, if 25 people ask me this question over the next month, it would save me so much time just to create a video. So I think, a lot of people are scared of automation because they think it's these, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars worth of projects, when in reality, your first step to automation today could be literally create a video that you've answered the same question 20 times, create a video for it. That's going to automate something. It's going to automate your time and free up your time, because the more things that you're doing over and over again are just, repetitive. And that's why I have so many videos on YouTube, because half of them probably are things people ask me to do. And then after 2 or 3 people ask me, especially if it's all in the same week, I'm like, I'll just create one video that's 10 minutes long and send it to the 6 people who asked me for it. That takes me 10 minutes instead of 60. And then every single time somebody else asks me that question, again, it's all coming back to freeing up your time, because time is everybody's most valuable asset and valuable resource, right? It's the most finite thing we have, and we're not getting any more of it, right? So the more time you can save yourself, the more better off you're going to be. And I look at everything from an opportunity cost, right? Like as you get more knowledge, you can charge more for your time becomes worth more, and naturally it becomes more expensive to do other things, right? Like it's kind of bad, especially because when you try to go on vacation, it's like, okay, well, the vacation might have cost you this much, but you just lost 40 hours of work, right? What's that worth? So like looking at that becomes tough, because it makes everything really, really expensive, but it especially makes the administrative tasks really expensive. So again, if you can hire somebody or automate it through a tool or AI or like whatever you're looking at, if it's $10 an hour and you're worth $100 an hour, outsource all that kind of stuff, right? I think the easiest analogy is like, getting somebody to mow your lawn, right? Like if you can charge $200 an hour for your time and you pay somebody $20 to mow your lawn and it takes them an hour, but it would take you an hour, you outsource that all day long, right? So those are easy examples, but you can extrapolate those into bigger business problems very, very easily, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely a hell of an answer, and it kind of leads me to talking. And we're going to get into some tech jargon. So for the listener, we're about to dive in a deep hole for a little bit, right? So obviously, when you're coming down to software, there's always a software stack behind the scenes that's supporting whatever software you're building, or API integrations, or there's calling. And again, you want to make a hemisphere to where all these things work together. And you're coming across more so as like an open source guy, right? So I want to know, like, why did you guys pick Microsoft Dynamic 360, considering that it's not necessarily an open source platform?
I think the integration points really that you get, and kind of the native integrations that you get with Microsoft, right? Like most people are already using Office 365 for, whether you know it or not, all the apps on your computer, right? If you're using Teams or using PowerPoint or Excel, like all of those things are already included in your Office 365 subscription. So like when you go into some of the bigger tools like Business Central, like CRM, like the Power Platform, right? All of that is already natively integrated, where you don't necessarily get that with other tools. Some of them may have it, but it's not as seamless, right? So I can go into a tool like Outlook or Excel, and it's already integrated with my ERP data. So I can pull up a customer record. If you emailed me, let's say, and you were a customer, in my Outlook, I could see statistics and CRM stuff about you without having to go into another system on day one, just because it's all integrated. And same with Excel. If you want to do data migration or data loads, things like that, there's literally buttons that pop it open directly into Excel. And I think just the direction that Microsoft is going with everything that they have, it makes it such a powerful stack, because there's nothing that they don't have that you would need to like run your business essentially, right? And if they don't, and you find something, they'll probably buy it and add it to their stack in the next 12 months, right?
Yeah.
So just the investment that they're making in all of their tools and the ability to natively integrate. And I think open, right? Like open source is different to different people. I would consider it pretty open source just because all the APIs are open. All the development is generally shared, on various platforms. So it's easy to get, other snippets of code that other people have done. People are very collaborative, I would say, in the Microsoft Dynamics community. We see it at a lot of the conferences we go to, as well as just on, social media like LinkedIn and Twitter and stuff like that. But there's really nothing I've come across in the Microsoft space that we haven't been able to accomplish, right? Through one tool or another, the way everything kind of talks to each other, it just makes it very easy for small businesses, I would say, to get up and running very quickly. And it scales very well to large businesses. I mean, I know people running various Dynamics products, Business Central from, $300 to $500 million a year, and then companies that are over $1 billion running Dynamics F&O, right? So it scales very, very well, and it makes it easy as a new business owner who probably is budget conscious to get in on the ground floor, and it allows you to grow as big as you need to go, right? So those are some of the things I've seen, and I mean, there's plenty of other tools out there, right? I don't like to compete against myself, but as long as people aren't using, QuickBooks, there's a lot of other good tools out there. You got NetSuite, you got Sage Intacct. I'd say those are kind of the three market leaders in terms of the SMB space. And I highly encourage people to kind of skip that QuickBooks phase just because it becomes very expensive to switch at some point, and it's really apples to apples when you look at initial, upkeep and licensing cost. Honestly, when looking at Business Central, you can get a license for $70 a month right now. And I think QuickBooks might be 60 for their base. So for 10 more bucks, you can never have to implement another ERP ever, which could cost $100,000+. So that's kind of, I'm obviously biased. I will disclaim that just because that's what we do, but I do it for a reason, right? Because I think there's a huge future and huge potential in everybody moving. I saw a stat today that there's 300,000 clients on premise today that Microsoft plans to bring to the cloud, either through D365, Business Central, or F&O, just depending on the market you're in, right? So for us, that's a huge potential, and none of those companies are going to migrate onto QuickBooks or Odoo or anything like that, right? They're either going to Business Central, F&O, NetSuite, or Sage Intacct, really.
Got it. So you brought up Sage, you brought up Oracle's NetSuite. So obviously, like, these are all the big providers, the big players in the game. So I want to talk about like your software, your services, and I think you've nicknamed it the Business Central Toolbox, the BC Toolbox. I wanted to talk about what's included with that.
Yeah, so kind of playing off the name of Business Central, right? So Business Central is the base tool that Microsoft sells, and what we've added on top of that is what we call the Business Central Toolbox, right? So right now it's 18 different tools that we sell. It's in Microsoft's App Source, which is very similar to like going on your iPhone and going to the App Store and downloading Instagram or Twitter or something, right? You download one of our apps and it gives you something that you didn't have on your device before, right? So again, in line with some of the things we're talking about today, all of our tools are focused around productivity, automation, and reporting and dashboarding, right? So going kind of back to front, reporting and dashboarding, you need to see your data. Everybody wants to see what the dashboards look like on day one. There's a lot of different options out there. We're one of the only ones that directly embeds that data into Business Central. A lot of people will start with our tool kind of during the implementation, during the support phases and things like that. And then maybe they need Power BI after, but ours is a really good prepackaged way to get key insights into your accounts receivable, payable, inventory, cash, sales, like all the basics that you would need to run your business on day one. People plug it in and go, yep, this is what Business Central was missing. We were having to create these from scratch. You provided a fit to a gap, right? So that's reporting and dashboarding. Then we look at kind of productivity and automation. And sometimes those kind of merge together depending on what you're looking at, right? So again, from a productivity standpoint, we're looking to decrease the amount of clicks that users have to do. We're trying to get them to work faster in the system, really just trying to take the amount of time down and make it easier, right? If you look at it, it's kind of that easy button. You plug it in and it makes whatever you're doing today less clicks and just easier to understand as a user. And then from an automation standpoint, I think one of the things we touched on earlier was accounts receivable, right? Cash is king. You want to get your cash in your business as fast as you can. So we've built some tools around AR automation, right? Automatically sending your invoices via email, automatically sending them reminders when their invoice comes past due, sending that every 7 days if you want to make sure that, they're paying, sending statements at the end of the month, sending cash receipt notices to say, hey, we've received your money, right? Increasing the touch points with your customers via email without anyone actually having to touch anything, right? So when I look at automation, I'm looking at, okay, I don't have to have an AR clerk for 40 hours a week. I could have one for 20 hours a week just doing value add stuff. And then the system is going to do everything. Not only does it free up their time, but it also decreases kind of the room for error, right? People can forget to send things out. The computer doesn't, right? And if it does, it'll tell you, because it'll send you an error log that says, hey, we missed some things. And then those are the things you can go manually touch, right? So I think really decreasing the touch points increases how efficient you are and increases your accuracy, right? Which is what every business owner and every, person on a leadership team wants. They want to know that things are going out in a timely manner. It's kind of like looking at your best employees, right? You want the people that are accountable. That's what you're looking for in software. You're looking for accountability and making sure that everything that you want to get done gets done, right? And I think that's a huge piece when looking at automation. It's very accountable, and it is making sure that stuff gets done.
So, I mean, I think it's definitely fascinating. And I want to talk about like the range of your ideal avatar, right? I mean, obviously you're talking about enterprise level, but just like you said earlier about defining open source, enterprise can mean multiple different things to multiple different individuals, right? So I want you to kind of define what enterprise means to you and who's the ideal avatar for your particular platform.
Yeah, and unfortunately, ERP, enterprise resource planning, it's been around, the term has been around forever. And I don't like the word enterprise in it, because I think it makes people feel like they're not a good fit, right? Because when I look at it, I just call it ERP, which it is, because I think people get thrown off by the word enterprise. Mm-hmm. When I look at ERP, I just think of systems, right? I think of financial systems, accounting systems, operation systems, inventory, warehousing, like all this type of stuff. And the smallest client I ever implemented for literally was a startup, and they were barely doing $100,000 a year in revenue. And we got them on Business Central, right? For $70 a month. They were, maybe spending a couple $100 a month just to have us help with a few things. And they were managing all of their accounting in their system. And then, like I said, you can go all the way up to real, what I'd consider enterprise, which is, 300, 400, 500,000 or $1 million a year, all the way up to $1 billion plus. But I'd say the sweet spot for Business Central, a lot of companies, 30 to, 100 million, really. I'd say that's, the bell curve. That's where 80% of them hit. And then we've got a ton that are under, and then we've got, a handful that are over as well. Typically that's kind of the gray area when you get into that 3 to 500 million. Then they're kind of looking at, okay, we'd be a big client for Business Central, or we'd be a small client for F&O, right? So that's kind of the gray area. But if you're under 100 million, Business Central is the place to be, in my opinion. You can get it up and running. The licensing scales with your user count. You can have as few as 1 users, all the way up to literally unlimited. And it really, again, I don't like the word enterprise. I like to look at it as SMB, right? That small, medium business market, because that's really what they cater to. Even though it technically is an ERP solution. Technically QuickBooks is an ERP, some people will say. I don't know if I agree with that, but it is, right? It does accounting, it does finance, you can hold inventory. Those are all kind of the key components of an ERP solution.
So I think it's definitely fascinating. So I mean, part of what you're doing is obviously you're educating some of the smaller end businesses to kind of help them kind of grow and obviously increase their bottom line. So I want to talk about like your Toolbox Tuesdays. Like, why did you guys come up with that? How effective has that been for your business, being that you're helping people understand what your platform does on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, it's been incredibly beneficial. And I think hitting back on one of the things I talked about earlier, right? If you can take 20 meetings and consolidate them into one, it gives you a lot of time back, right? So we were getting so much demand for, hey, can you demo this? Can you demo this? Can you demo this? Myself and my VP of sales, we talked and we're like, we need something to get like these ideas across to everyone at the same time, right? So it's like, now if we get a bunch of messages this week, we've got one next Tuesday on invoice and statement delivery, which is that AR automation tool. Everybody who wants to meet and get a demo, we're like, hey, come next Tuesday. We'll show you everything in 30 minutes. And then if you have any additional questions, then we can have a one-on-one meeting. But I think we've got probably 35 people signed up right now. And, 20 of them will probably be just perfect with the content we provide. and 10 of them might have additional questions, and 5 of them might have found out they're in the wrong room and they don't need it, right? Or something like that. So I think, again, optimizing how you use your time is one of the biggest reasons that we're doing the Toolbox Tuesday right now for us internally, because we want to get the word out to as many people as possible. And if we take 40 hours of demos this week, then we are kind of decreasing how many people we can reach next week. And really our goal is to get it across to as many people as we can, because we've got, I'd say 6 out of our 18 tools, literally every company that's on Business Central today can benefit from them, right? Some of the others are more requirements driven. Some people need them, some people don't, but we're trying to get the word out for our 6 core products and our essentials package in the toolbox to everyone, because everyone can benefit from them. Those are our 3 dashboards, our invoice and statement delivery, our advanced accounting, and our advanced notifications, right? Like literally anytime we show a client, they're like, hey, I haven't had a chance to look at the rest of the stuff, but sign me up for the first 6, and then we'll keep talking about to see if we can use some of the others, right? Because of the productivity and automation increases that they get, and because of those additional insights. So yes, the Toolbox Tuesdays have been an absolute hit, and it's really just to get the word out in kind of like a mass communication. Then we of course record all that as well. And if anybody's interested, it's all on our YouTube channel. But we like to make that evergreen content, because I know for myself, like I like to self-serve. So if somebody had a product and they were like, hey, wait a few weeks for a demo, I'd be like, I want to see it right now. Right. So I'd go out to their YouTube channel and watch it. But other people like the forums and the Q&A, which we do on our Toolbox Tuesdays. And then other people like the one-on-ones, right? So again, we'll do all 3. It's just trying to find the right medium to efficiently use our time. Because again, we run very lean and it works very well for us. We've got 7 people right now on our team. But we can continue to scale that based on kind of what we're doing as a business without hiring like a crazy amount more people. We'll need more people as time goes on and we get more clients, but it won't grow linearly with revenue, which is kind of the should be the goal of every business, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just listening to you speaking. I mean, like you're profound in the way you're delivering like direct, precise information, which goes hand in hand with the accountant side, right? Which also goes hand in hand with the technology side. So I want to kind of time travel back. I want you to go back before high school, and I want you to talk about your upbringing a little bit. I mean, you grew outside like 50 miles from Chicago. Like, have you always been this person? Like, and you can kind of remember seeing yourself growing up and seeing elements of who you are today, or did you just kind of come into this person later on in life?
I would say really in high school, it started to get that way, just because the high school I went to was like very competitive, very, I don't want to say cutthroat, but it was very competitive, right? It was small. It was a bunch of dudes, which, gets very competitive, playing sports, and, kind of even going from a class rank perspective, right? Every semester they just plop up on a board 1 through 100, everybody wanted to be 1 and nobody wanted to be 100. So I think that's really when that started. But from a very early age, my dad has always owned his own business. So I think I probably just saw it growing up. I never really, it's funny because you never want to do what your parents do. So like my dad is a big tennis player. He coaches tennis now. So I never played tennis. I played golf, right? Because it was like the opposite. Like what can I do? He's gonna go play tennis. Okay, I'll go play golf. I did end up going to the same high school he did. And then I was like, there's no way I'm going to go to the same college you did, which I didn't. And then I studied finance because I wasn't interested in IT at the time. And then I naturally found myself back in IT, which is kind of like where my dad focuses as well. So I think over time, it was just something that maybe was ingrained in me. I don't know. But I saw it like so much that it was just easy to talk about and easy to learn. I think when you combine what you're passionate about and what you're good at, that's a very, dangerous in a good way, combination, right? Because I think so many people are maybe working jobs that they don't necessarily like, but they just do them to pay the bills, right? They're scared of going and doing their own thing about what they're passionate about because they don't think they can make money on it. But especially in today's world with everything on social media and how easy it is, a lot easier now to get things out than it was 10, 15 years ago. I think, if you really can find something that you're passionate about and find a way, not necessarily to get rich. I think that's the misconception, right? Everybody wants to like do their passion and get rich, but there's, anywhere from 5 to 30 years, you may never get rich, right? But you can make enough money probably as you were at your last job, right? So I think, again, growing up, I was never like, oh, I'm going to be this, person when I grow up. Even 6-7 years ago, when I was working at one of my first jobs that I stayed at for close to 5 years out of college, right? Like at a point I saw myself, I was like, I could probably stay here forever and, roll the partner path and just work here for 15 years and then, buy into the partnership. But then some things change over time. You get new ideas, you see what other people are doing, you talk to different mentors and different people, and you go, I could probably do this a lot quicker myself if I just go start my own thing, right? So I think that's really when it clicked, probably in 2019, 2020, somewhere around there, probably 2020, kind of that COVID era, right? Where everyone's like just stuck in their house and you're just forced to your thoughts almost. So it's kind of like the silver lining, right? So you get to think, you're like, okay, I can get a 3 to 4% increase on my pay every year, or I could take a pay cut and go try to start my own thing and then maybe make, twice as much. But that's not my goal. At least my goal is to get freedom of time, work with people that we like working with. I love everybody on our team. It's just fun to come to work every day and work with everybody. And again, really just have fun with something that you're passionate about. And if you make a bunch of money while you're doing it, that's just the cherry on top, right? We're not even at that point yet, full transparency. But if we keep doing things right, I think we'll naturally get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely have like insight that, I think any entrepreneur, they need to have, right? So I want you to kind of talk about yourself and just defining yourself using 3 to 5 words. And what would those 3 to 5 words be?
First one that comes to mind is motivated, right? I don't think you can get anything without the motivation. You have to be wanting it. The drive, which I think maybe goes with motivation a little bit, but really being willing to put in the long hours and just, kind of persevere through everything. That would probably be my third word, perseverance, right? Like never giving up. I think that is probably the most difficult part of this whole thing, right? There's a lot of high moments and a lot of low moments, and a lot of people quit during the lows, right? So you have to be able to persevere. Charisma or charismatic, right? I think I like working with other people that are charismatic and kind of are passionate about what they do. And I think that helps separate maybe me from some other people that are doing the same thing, right? I know what I'm doing, but I'm also very passionate about it. And I think it comes across a lot of times. And a lot of our clients and partners say that, like, oh, yeah, you can just talk for hours about this, right? Because I can tell that you're actually, you're charismatic about it and you're really passionate about it. And then trying to think, what's the perfect 5th word? Funny or goofy, right? I like to have fun with my team and my friends, right? So you can't take yourself too seriously. There's a lot of stressful moments growing a business and working with a small team because everybody's eggs are all in the same basket, but kind of just being willing after the call to make fun of each other or, call people out in a good way that makes them better, but kind of being able to joke around about it. And, we'll like in our teams chat, we'll be sending each other memes and funny stuff. I was telling our sales guy one yesterday, it was like just some random thing. It was like, I don't know where the clip was from, but he was like 50 and he's like, not enough, 100, not enough. And it was like, how many times should you follow up with your cold leads? Right. And I like send that to my sales guy or something like that, just joking with them. But yeah, you got to have fun with it. You can't come to work every day just to work. You gotta go out, do things with your team. Even in the virtual world, have that teams chat and, have some fun with it, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I think before I even asked you that question, you had finished the last statement with a keyword that kind of goes into your core values, and that was transparency. So I want you to talk about the transparency, efficiency, and quality. Why are those the 3 main things that you guys are striving to give value back in?
Yeah, transparency, definitely number 1, right? I think a lot of people think it's a technology business or they think it's, an IT and accounting business, but it's really a people business at the end of the day, right? People want to work with other people that they like. Our clients, they have other options. They could build their own tools. They could go to somebody else to help get them built, or they could come to us. And I think one of the big things that we value there, like you said, is that transparency, which is our number 1 core value. You see it on our website, on our YouTube, or everything. We put our prices out there. I put who's on our team. I put how much experience we have, like our hourly prices, our bundle prices, like literally everything, which a lot of people don't do. And I think, sometimes sometimes it works because then they're like, oh, what's the price? I'm going to inquire about it, and they get a lead from it. But I really want people to be able to self-serve, which kind of goes back to the efficiency standpoint. Like if they see everything on our website, we cut out so many hours of them asking like, what's the price of this? What's the price of this? How much do you charge for this? It's like, nope, it's just all online. So we skip all that. Right.
Mhm.
And even if it makes us a little bit less money, it gives us so much time back that we can focus on other things like building great products. Right. So I think the transparency as a true people business, both internally and externally, helps really align with what we're doing, and it builds the trust. Because if people don't trust you, they're going to use your product maybe for a little bit, and then they're going to go somewhere else, right? So we want them to trust us. We want to be transparent, and we want to build client relationships for life, right? Second piece of that is quality, right? They can trust you as much as you want, but if your product's a piece of crap, they're going to leave too, right? So you got to get them in the door with the trust, and then we like to build really, really great products. And even on top of the base products, we get client recommendations all the time. We rolled a few client recommendations into one of our products last week, right? So we like to listen. I think that, again, goes back to the people aspect. People want to be heard. Obviously, I can't do everything because we have time constraints, but we'll put the most popular things in our products at no charge most of the time. And people like that, and it benefits the greater community as well. So I think being transparent and building a great quality product helps get clients for life. And then the efficiency. I mean, that's just internal, right? We want to do things as fast as possible so that we can optimize what our output is. We like to work really, really hard during the day, and, have time off and have fun on the weekends and things like that. But you have to be efficient. Otherwise, money only lasts so long. So, you look at a lot of these startups and their burn rates and things like that. Like if you're just burning cash forever and you're not efficient, you're going to burn through it. Right. So being efficient really helps kind of prioritize things. We have prioritization meetings all the time. What are we doing next? What are we doing next week, next month? What do we have to get done before our big summit conference in October? Right. I've got a list of things we need to do, and we probably can't get them all done, right? So what are we going to prioritize, and how do we work through that most efficiently so that we can deliver on our promise as to what do we have new that's coming out that we've been promising our clients and our partner network, right? So all three of those things go hand in hand to me. And it kind of goes back to the whole, I speak in a lot of trifectas. I also have one, I call it the people, process, technology, right? It's the three things every business needs to run efficiently. So you kind of look at quality, transparency, and efficiency. And you also look at people, process, technology, and you have to have all the pieces together. Otherwise, if you miss one, something could fall apart, right? If you're not efficient, you could be the most transparent and the highest quality, but you never get a product to market, right? So you're going to go out of business, unfortunately. If you have a great product and you're really efficient, but you're not transparent, people are going to stop trusting you, and they're going to be like, we're not going to do business with these guys, right? So I think looking at a lot of those things together, you can't have any missing pieces. You got to be very diligent about what you do, and it all kind of combines together into that scalability that most companies are looking for. Everybody wants to grow, right?
Yeah. I think something that you said is fascinating, especially in the space that you're in. Because I mean, obviously, going back to what we talked about earlier about the definition of enterprise, right? Usually when you're kind of talking at that level, it's usually a sales tool not to put the price on the website, right? It's usually called now for additional information, called now for quote, call now for demo, and then you kind of sell from that standpoint as you talk to the actual client and figure out what their needs and requirements are. So again, you're doing more of a transparency. You're putting the price out there, and I think you had also made the comment about, you may not get as many sales, but then you're saving time. So I want you to kind of talk about the push and pull with that, because I mean, obviously, if we talk at Oracle, they have it set up to where you kind of have to call for pricing, right? So I want to kind of figure out like the pros and cons of your method.
Yeah, I think the biggest pro is the qualification, right? If somebody's calling us, they're 90% chance that they're going to buy something, right? Because they've already looked, they know what our tools do, they know what they cost, they know who we are. So if they're calling me, unless they like wasting their own time, like they're gonna buy something, right? So I think that's the biggest pro. And then, again, from a con standpoint, we just, I don't know, maybe don't get as many leads as we could if we weren't transparent. But then again, the extra leads we would get would be garbage, in my opinion, right? So it's like, to me, I don't see any cons other than maybe, not getting some leads, which I don't consider a con. I consider that a pro, because it's people that I didn't maybe need to talk to originally. And brand it the Business Central toolbox, right? It's not the ERP toolbox, because then people get confused and they'll be on NetSuite and they'll come and be like, hey, we want your ERP tools. And it's like, sorry, these only work with Business Central, right? And that's where we're at right now. We like focusing on that Microsoft stack, and Business Central has provided a lot of fruits for our labor, right? And I like working in this ecosystem. But for me, it's really been all pros. I think the difficult thing from maybe a more professional service side, which I've done a lot of as well, we don't do anymore, but those are harder to quote. The most transparent you could be there is, hey, this is our hourly rate, right? Outside of that, like, you can't be like, your implementation is going to cost $75,000. It's like, we don't know anything about your business, right? I've worked with some companies that have been very successful in being transparent about their price, but the key is you have to lock down what the requirements are, right? You could say for like $10,000, we can get your chart of accounts, your vendors, your customers, and payment methods or banking setup, right? You can't say, oh, we'll implement all of your manufacturing in your warehouse for $200,000. It's like, I've done some of those for 100. I've done some of those for 400, right? So it's like, if you want to get, the more complex you get, the harder it is to quote. But I think, again, from an initial standpoint, if you're charging $300 an hour, you don't want the people who are going to fight you and want to pay $175 an hour, right? So in my opinion, it would be good if you put that on your website, because you're not going to waste your time doing RFPs for clients who are not willing to spend over $200 an hour, right? And then at the same time, people who are charging $100, $125 an hour, that might be more independents. Again, it might disqualify some other companies that want a PwC to do it for $300 an hour, right? Because they want the 200,000 employee background and they want to be that full service offering. They don't want an independent consultant, right? So I think, to me, transparency goes a long way. And ultimately, if you care about your time and opportunity cost, you're always looking at those things to say, in some cases, how can we decrease conversations? Because the conversations you're decreasing are ones that probably aren't adding any value, right? As a new business owner or somebody who's growing a business, again, I go back to time is your most valuable asset and your most valuable resource. So optimizing that, and sometimes even not taking a call that you understand that has no value, that could be an email, or maybe I shouldn't say that, doesn't have any value right now, right? It might in a year or two, but right now it doesn't align with your core. So you say, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish right now. And you can send this in an email in 2 minutes. Hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish right now. If our phone call would accomplish these things, let's definitely chat. If not, let's talk 12 months from now when we might align better, right? That'll save you 30 minutes right there. And you do that 10 times a week, it adds up. It all compounds. It's like, investing in the S&P, it all compounds on each other, right? If your money's not compounding at 7%, the time you're wasting or the time you're gaining also is compounding at, 10% or whatever it might be. So it kind of all goes back to those core rules that I keep for myself and our team as well.
So let's just roll off of those core rules, right? Like, let's say a listener is listening right now and they're falling into the fintech space or the accounting space, or they're striving to become more of the higher level small business, right? Like you said earlier, somewhere like around 30 million. They're probably trying to go from 3 million to 10 million, so forth and so forth. What words of wisdom or insight do you have for the individual to kind of help them succeed and to move forward?
Biggest piece of advice I always tell people is put the process in place before you need it, right? Because by the time you need it, it's too late, right? It's like, kind of, if you're working out, right, you're not going to wait until you're dehydrated to drink a bunch of water, right? You might not be thirsty, but you're kind of drinking throughout the process of going for a run or something like that. It's the same with the business. Get your processes in place before you need them. You could have $0 in revenue and you'd be like, okay, I'm going to pop open this Excel sheet. I spent $100, then I made $1,000, and then you give that to your CPA, and it's going to cost you more money to have them reconcile your Excel sheet than if you could print them a nice, income statement out of some sort of system. Again, doesn't have to be Business Central. If you want it to be Business Central, I'll talk to you, but just do something, right? That's not an Excel. Build those processes. I think one of the biggest things we did initially, when the company started, it was just me, right? I implemented a time tracking tool because I didn't need it. I could have put my time on paper and billed people, right? Because there's nobody else relying on me, but I wanted to prove it out that it would work. And I used it for 3 months before hiring my first employee. And then when I hired my first employee, it was, here's our standard, go put your time in here. It integrates to your Outlook calendar. You just click the buttons and it works really well, right? if I would have had to do that after, he would have had to put his time in Excel and then send it to me. And then we would have put it in something. And then I would have said 3 months later, hey, we're going to switch now. And people hate change, right? So as you're scaling, I think that's twofold, right? One, to get some of those automation pieces in place early. And then two, to avoid as much change as you can, because everyone hates change, right? So if you have them in place before all of your employees start, there's less change for the employees, and it makes it, appear as if it's not scatterbrained sometimes. Really, I think that detracts a lot from what your business is doing. If your business is trying to sell products or services or whatever you're trying to sell, that's the focus, right? The focus isn't getting your time in the business, booking, billing time, things like that, buying materials, like those are all just necessary evils. So build the processes before you need them. Again, you don't have to spend $1 million. There's a lot of free tools or $10 a month tools out there that can help with things like time entry and expense management and ERP solutions and accounting and finance, right? So you don't have to spend $1 million, but just have something, because if you can define the process before you need it, it will pay dividends. Because by the time you need it, you probably also won't have time to think about it, and you'll be forced to make a quick decision without really vetting the information. So plan early and do things before you actually need them.
So the person's listening right now and they're like, okay, what's the next step? Where do you want to send them? Is it a particular website, an email address? How do they get in contact?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the easiest way to find us is bctoolbox.com. That'll redirect you to our site, just kind of like our short URL. Again, on the spirit of transparency, if you want to reach out to me or anybody on my team, all of our emails and LinkedIn's are right on our website on our team page, and we are happy to hear from anybody. Like I said, if you have any questions or anything like that, let us know. If you're looking to come to Business Central, look to start a new business and just want to ask me a few questions about my experience, I'm happy to do so. As being part of this podcast today, I'd be happy to chat with anybody listening. And yeah, just look forward to connecting on LinkedIn mainly and seeing what kind of questions I can field going forward. Looking forward to hopefully encouraging everybody to optimize their business and really kind of take a step back and think about where you're trying to go and how you're going to get there.
I think to kind of switch things up a little bit on your personal side, I mean, earlier off air, I had said, congratulations, you recently got married. And obviously in entrepreneurism is always trying to find like a counterpart that works well with who you are and what you're doing and having like the same principles and growth. So I want you to kind of talk about like your day-to-day on your home life. Like, how are you currently balancing and juggling both being an effective president and founder, but at the same time being a great husband?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, right? Every day we get up, usually 5:30. We go work out together, which starts off our day on a right point. We'll come home, usually make a coffee or something like that, and I'll jump on my computer around 7:30. Usually, from then until dinner, really, it's kind of grind. Luckily, my wife works very hard as well. She's kind of I'm downstairs and she's upstairs. We both work from home. And we'll maybe see each other on the middle floor for lunch or something like that in the kitchen. But for the most part, those hours are dedicated to work. We'll always try to come back and walk the dog, and then have dinner together at night. And then usually I'll honestly go back to work until, 10 or 11, depending on the day. And then get up in the next morning and do it all over again. So that's usually my schedule from Monday to Thursday. Friday, I try to not work as late, and we'll usually go out to dinner or something like that. And then depending on the weekend, if we're trying to launch something or we've got a lot of backlog, typically I'm working, but we'll try to make time for ourselves. She'll try to do one of the things she likes doing. I'll usually try to go play around a golf maybe or something like that. And then just take some time to relax, whether it's taking the dog for a walk or to the dog park or something like that, going out to dinner, going do something fun, see a movie, whatnot, trying to balance it as much as possible. But I think we both have the same kind of goals in mind, right? Like, we don't have any kids yet. So that makes it easier. And really trying to invest a lot of our time now to build a better future for ourselves, again, free up our time later in life. And then, really be able to spend hopefully a lot of time with our kids, not working 80 hours a week by the time that comes. So no plans yet, but when it does come, we want to be ready for it. So trying to build that foundation now.
Very cool. Very cool. So, I mean, with that, I got like a fun question for you, right?
Yeah.
Ideally, if you could spend 24 hours with anyone, right? This person could be someone that's from the past that you've never met before, someone you've heard about, or someone that's alive today. Who would you like to spend 24 hours with and why?
Well, being from Dallas and being a huge Shark Tank fan, I'd probably go Mark Cuban. He's just somebody I always listen to. I find him really motivational. And, every once in a while you have a small chance of seeing him, especially living in Dallas. So I definitely go with Mark Cuban just because I think, coming from a tech background as well, being a successful entrepreneur, being, again, in Dallas, just a lot of right things aligning, and it'd be really cool just to hang out for 24 hours, pick his brain, learn. And honestly, he seems like a fun guy too. So I think it would just be a good day. It wouldn't be all business. We'd be able to brainstorm and kind of bounce things off of each other, and then also go out and go shoot some hoops or play some golf or do something fun as well. So I think he'd be a good guy to hang out with for a day.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, Mark, he's one of those guys kind of like behind the scenes, but at the same time, he's in the limelight. So it's kind of like a bipolar situation, right? So I definitely could see Mark Cuban for sure. So going into closing, man, I definitely appreciate you being on the show today. I think that we delivered a lot of value in a short period of time. It was a lot of insight. And again, anyone that's diving into this space, I definitely want them to kind of listen to this episode, but also reach out to you. So in closing of Boss Uncaged, what I usually like to do is give whoever I'm interviewing an opportunity to become the host of Boss Uncaged podcast. I become your guest. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. How did you get into all this, and how do you continue to grow your podcast? I've watched a lot of your episodes, and, you got a wide variety of folks on there. So what made you passionate about doing this and kind of giving back to your community and taking that interview approach for these podcasts? I always find that really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's twofold. I mean, one fold is kind of like figuring out that I was both highly analytical and creative at the same time, split down the middle 50-50. So it gives me an opportunity to kind of talk about diverse topics, but at the same time, infuse myself in those environments and almost kind of become very parallel to the person that I'm speaking. In addition to that, it was just kind of like my life journey as far as like business and entrepreneurism. And fortunately, in my earlier days, I kind of, to what you said earlier, I burnt myself out and I had a stroke back in 2018. So the opportunity for me to kind of recover from that and figure out what is my legacy going to be and how do I give back to a community of entrepreneurs that may be born today, right? They may not even exist yet. But like to your point, the diversity is kind of giving people opportunity to see different disciplines and to see the success that it took to get those individuals there. But ideally, everyone's journey is completely themselves.
That's awesome.
Cool. So, I mean, if you got no other questions, I mean, that would be it today. And again, I think the people that are listening right now, I want you to this is one of the episodes that you kind of have to take in small bites and kind of re-listen to it. Because I mean, there was so much delivery of value of execution to kind of figure out not only your books or your accounting or how to create a system or what software to use or how to leverage it, but pound for pound, I think the collective message here is what Ben said earlier. It was kind of like you have to apply these systems before the systems are needed. Start thinking about them beforehand to get them to execute for you when you actually need them.
Absolutely.